People feared 2020. They survived 2021. But 2026 came for their souls. They say time only moves forward. But in 2026, time opened its eyes. No one noticed at first. The world did not shake. The skies did not darken. There were no warnings on the news. It began in the smallest possible way. Clocks that ticked 1 second too long, calendars that skipped a day, phone screens that flashed dates that did not exist. January 3rd was followed by January 5th in 3 different cities. People laughed and blamed software bugs. Then shadows began to stay behind. A woman in Carvin Village stepped away from her wall one evening, but her shadow did not follow. It remained stretched across the bricks, fingers twisted like claws. By morning, she was gone. No footprints, no struggle, no goodbye. Only her shadow remained. More followed. Children woke up screaming that someone was whispering their birthdays into their ears. Radio stations played static that sounded like breathing. Dogs howled at empty streets at exactly the same time every night. 2:06 a.m. Not 2:05, not 2:07, always 2:06. That was when the knocking began. 1 knock, 2, 6. People opened their doors expecting drunk neighbors, lost travelers, stray animals. They found nothing, and by sunrise they were gone. Their homes stood empty, lights still on, bed still warm, food still on plates, but no trace of the people who had lived there for decades. The police blamed kidnappings. The priests whispered about curses. The old people said the same thing in trembling voices. The year has awakened. I was a journalist. I had covered riots, murders, even war zones. But nothing prepared me for Carvin. By the time I arrived, the village was half dead. Doors were sealed with red thread. Windows were boarded shut. Even temples had been locked. No bells rang. No incense burned. A man stood near the well, tying black cloth around its mouth. "Do not write about this year," he whispered when he saw my recorder. "It listens." That night, my hotel room smelled of damp stone and dust. The mirror above the sink reflected my tired face, and behind me, someone else. A thin, pale woman stood inches from my back. I spun around. The room was empty. I looked again. The mirror was clear. The clock on the wall ticked. 2:05. I sat on the bed, heart pounding. The second hand reached 12. 2:06. Knock. The sound came from my door. 1 knock. 2. 6. I didn't move. The handle slowly turned. The door creaked open by itself. Cold air rushed inside, carrying the smell of wet earth and something rotten. No one stood in the hallway, but wet footprints appeared on the floor, walking into my room. They stopped beside my bed. A whisper brushed my ear. "Your year is almost ready." The footprints vanished. The door slammed shut. By morning, 3 more houses were empty. One family's dog was found sitting in front of their locked door, whining at nothing. I started investigating records. Every disappearance followed the same pattern. Same knock, same time, same empty homes. But what terrified me most was the calendar room. Inside the village office, hundreds of old calendars were stacked from floor to ceiling. Each one had names written over certain dates. The names of the missing. Someone had been marking them for decades. But starting in 2026, the pages were different. They were burned around the edges, and the dates bled. I followed the trail to an abandoned clock tower at the edge of the village. Inside, thousands of scratch numbers covered the walls. Years, future years. Names were being carved in advance. I found mine, scratched under the year 2026. That night, my reflection didn't blink when I did. It smiled. The knocking came again. I ran. The village road twisted in impossible ways, looping me back to the tower again and again. Pale figures stood along the roadside, whispering dates. My birth date, my death date. Inside the tower, I found a room with no windows, only a massive black calendar carved into stone. The year 2026 glowed faintly red. A voice filled the room. Time was wounded. It said, "Humans broke it. We feed on years to heal it." I tried to scream, but my shadow stepped off the wall and covered my mouth. I woke up in a hospital. They said I had been found unconscious outside Carvin. The village was gone, burned, flattened, no records, no maps, only ash. But the knocking never stopped. Every night at 2:06 a.m., my door still shakes. My mirror still shows someone else standing behind me. My calendar still bleeds. And I know the truth. 2026 isn't coming. It's already here. And it remembers your name.